I don't know what I expected, really. Maybe a text. A call. Even one of those overdone group invites with glittery pastel graphics and a baby emoji in the title. Just something. Something to say, hey, I see you. You matter enough to be there. But days passed. Then a week. And my inbox stayed quiet. It was my sister's baby shower, her second baby, her first daughter. She'd always dreamed of having a girl. When we were kids, she'd tuck our dolls under blankets made of dish towels and whisper lullabies to them like she already knew what motherhood felt like. She was good at that, pretending, performing. Playing the perfect daughter, the perfect sister. And somehow, she always made it look easy. I wasn't sure if I was overreacting. Maybe the invite had gotten lost, or maybe she assumed I knew it was happening and didn't need a formal invitation. Families are messy that way, too familiar to follow normal rules, too tangled to be clear. Still, it sat heavy in my chest. A dull pressure, like something I couldn't quite swallow. It wasn't until my cousin Amber posted a photo from the party prep, pink balloons, diaper cake, a banner that said "Hello little one" strung across a white picket fence, that it really hit me. The shower was happening that day. And I hadn't heard a word. I stared at the photo on my screen for what felt like hours. Everyone had matching outfits. Little custom cookies shaped like baby bottles. It was all so curated. Like something out of a lifestyle blog. And I wasn't part of it. Not even as a blurry figure in the background. I sat on the edge of my bed, gift bag in hand, the one I'd bought a week ago just in case. It was still wrapped in its receipt, the tissue paper untouched. Inside was a pale pink knit onesie and a small journal titled "Letters to My Daughter." I don't know why I picked it. Maybe because I wished someone had given me something like that. A place to write down the things you don't say out loud. I didn't want to show up. I really didn't. But some part of me, the part that still believed in birthdays and forgiveness and showing up for people even when they forget you, couldn't stay away. I drove across town, practicing what I'd say. Just dropping this off. I know you're busy. I won't stay. Simple. Non-confrontational. Like I didn't notice I was left out. Her friend's backyard was already full when I got there. Laughter floated over the fence like bubbles. The kind of laughter that makes you pause outside the gate and wonder if you really belong on the other side. I tightened my grip on the gift bag and stepped inside. No one noticed me at first. Or maybe they did, and they just didn't say anything. That's worse, somehow, being noticed and dismissed in the same breath. I caught glimpses of familiar faces, childhood neighbors, coworkers I'd met once, a few cousins I hadn't spoken to in years. All of them beaming like they were part of something sacred. And then I saw her. My sister. She was standing under a canopy of tulle and fake peonies, radiant in a blush wrap dress that hugged her baby bump like it was made for it. She looked happy. Genuinely, effortlessly happy. The kind of happiness I used to imagine for myself before things got complicated. She was mid-laugh when she spotted me. Her expression shifted for just a second, a blink, before she pasted on a smile and walked over. "Hey," she said, like she'd just run into me at Target. I held out the bag. Just wanted to drop this off. I didn't get an invite, but I thought maybe that was a mistake. She hesitated. And that pause, that tiny, loaded pause, told me everything. "Oh. Right," she said, taking the bag. "I must have forgotten. Things have been so crazy lately. You know how it is." I nodded slowly, like I understood. Like forgetting your own sister was something people just did. She glanced over my shoulder, distracted. "Well, it's really nice of you to come." I almost turned to leave. I should have. But something, call it pride, or maybe masochism, made me stay just a little longer. I stood there, awkward, in the middle of pink balloons and paper straws, watching everyone swirl around me like I was invisible. And that's when I saw him. At first, I thought I was imagining things. My breath caught without warning, like I'd been punched in the stomach from the inside out. He was standing near the dessert table, laughing with two of my sister's friends. Same tousled brown hair. Same crooked smile. Same worn leather bracelet on his wrist, the one I bought him on our second anniversary. Tyler. My ex. The one who shattered me in the quietest way possible. The one who made promises he had no intention of keeping. The one who slept with my best friend, Lila, while I was home nursing the flu and texting him things like "miss you already" and "I hope she likes you." I hadn't seen him in over a year. And now he was here. At my sister's baby shower. Like this was just some cozy little reunion. My heart thundered so loud I was sure people could hear it. My palms went slick. My mouth felt dry. I turned back to my sister, barely keeping my voice steady. "You invited Tyler?" She blinked. "Yeah, he's around. We've stayed in touch. He's good with kids." "Right," I said, staring at her. "Good with kids." She tilted her head like she didn't understand why I was making it weird. I didn't think it would be a big deal. There it was again. That line. Like my feelings were optional. Like my history didn't count unless it was convenient. And maybe the worst part, the part that made my throat close up, was the way she smiled at me after. Like we were fine. Like this was fine. Like I should be okay with being forgotten, erased, replaced. "I should go," I mumbled, already backing away. "Wait," she said. But she didn't move. Didn't follow me. Just stood there, holding the gift bag like it was a stranger's coat. I walked up past the balloons, past the cake table, past the tiny white chairs and flower crowns and all the parts of the party I was never meant to see. My car was warm inside. Too warm. I sat there with the engine off, windows up, heart pounding like it was trying to get away from me. In the silence, one sentence played over and over again in my head. I must have forgotten. Not "I'm sorry." Not "let me make it right." Just forgotten. And somehow, that hurt more than if she'd said she did it on purpose. Because being erased accidentally? That meant I didn't even register. I was never part of the picture to begin with. I don't remember when I stopped hoping they'd notice. It wasn't all at once, more like the way light fades at dusk. Slow, steady, until suddenly you're sitting in the dark and you can't remember when the sun disappeared. I stayed in my car for nearly 20 minutes after I left the baby shower. Just staring at the house, at the pink and gold decorations fluttering in the breeze, trying to decide if I was being dramatic. Again. That was the word they always used. Dramatic. Too sensitive. Too in your head. But then I thought about the look on her face when she saw me. That flicker of discomfort she tried to cover up with a tight-lipped smile. The way her eyes slid past me mid-sentence like she was already looking for someone else. I wasn't just a forgotten name on a guest list. I was a disruption. A shadow at the party. And the thing is, it wasn't new. It's always been that way. For as long as I can remember, I've been the quiet one. The peacekeeper. The one who doesn't ask for much, so she ends up getting even less. When we were kids, my sister Sarah was sunshine. Loud, golden, unapologetically center stage. She wore glitter like armor and always had a story to tell, a song to sing, a spotlight to chase. My parents adored her, not because they didn't love me, but because loving her was just easier. She sparkled, and they followed the light. I learned early on that silence was safer. I was the one who noticed when Mom's mood shifted and Dad was too tired from work to handle another meltdown. I'd clean up quietly, say sorry first, be the one to share or give in. Not because I was nicer, but because it was just easier that way. Easier to bend than to break. By the time we were teenagers, our roles were locked in. She was the star. I was the understudy. I didn't resent her, not exactly. I just tried to stay out of the way. I figured if I kept my head down and didn't cause problems, someone would eventually say, "Hey, thanks for holding things together." But no one ever did. And I stopped expecting it. When I met Tyler, I didn't tell Sarah right away. I didn't want to see her eyes light up and her voice rise in that teasing way that always made me feel small. He was mine. He made me feel seen in a way I hadn't felt in years. Like I was something new, something worth noticing. At first, it was good. He'd surprise me with takeout when I was too tired to cook. He'd stay up with me on the phone when I couldn't sleep. He told me I was steady, grounding. That he needed that in his life. And I believed him. But slowly, quietly, things changed. He started flaking. Canceling plans. Laughing a little too long at Lila's jokes. Lila, my best friend since sophomore year. Lila, who once cried on my floor when her boyfriend cheated on her, who made us friendship bracelets with little charms that said "No boys allowed." I didn't see it coming. Not until it had already happened. The photo showed up in my feed one night. Someone had tagged him, Tyler, in a picture at a rooftop party I didn't know about. He had his arm around her waist. Lila. They were smiling like they'd won something. Maybe they had. I didn't scream. I didn't confront. I didn't set anything on fire or throw my phone against a wall. I just closed the app and sat very still. Later, I texted Sarah. Told her what happened. Her reply? Just one sentence. That's awful. I'm so sorry. No call. No check-in the next day. No come over, let's talk. Just that. And then nothing. I pulled away after that. From everyone. I moved to a new apartment, started working longer hours, ignored the family group chat unless someone mentioned grandma. Even then, I kept my replies short. I told myself I was just giving myself space to heal. But the truth? I didn't feel missed. Not once did someone say, "Where have you been?" or "We haven't seen you in a while." And now, here I was. Standing in my own sister's backyard, invisible all over again. I'd barely made it 10 feet from the gate when I felt a tap on my shoulder. It was my cousin Emily, sweet, always overdressed, permanently locked into Instagram mode. "I didn't know you were coming," she chirped, eyes wide with surprise. "There's, not really a seat for you at the table. But you can totally hang back here with us." She gestured toward a few fold-out chairs near the edge of the patio. No table. No plate. Just the leftovers of the party. "It's okay," I said quickly. "I'm just dropping by. I won't stay long." "Oh, cool," she smiled, already turning back to her selfie. I hovered awkwardly near the drink table for a while, watching Sarah bounce between groups of guests like a bride at her own wedding. She laughed too loudly at something someone said. Tossed her hair the way she always did when she knew people were watching. She hadn't even opened my gift yet. And no one, not one person, asked how I was. If I was okay. If I needed anything. I was just there. And somehow, still not. I don't know what made me check her phone. I wasn't trying to snoop. But I walked past the side table near the house, and her phone lit up with a new message. It was from Lila. "Tyler's being such a sweetheart, thank you again for inviting me." My heart dropped. Lila had been here. She'd been here, at my sister's baby shower. I wasn't just forgotten. I was replaced. Everything around me went quiet. The laughter, the chatter, the clinking glasses, it all blurred into static. My feet felt rooted to the ground, like the earth had opened up and wrapped around my ankles to keep me from running. I backed away slowly, numb. Past the decorations, past the cake table, past the gift pile where my bag sat unopened, untouched. It wasn't the first time I'd been erased. It wouldn't be the last. But in that moment, standing in the middle of a celebration I wasn't meant to see, I understood something that I hadn't dared admit before. This wasn't an oversight. It wasn't forgetfulness. This was a choice. They didn't see me, not because I'd disappeared, but because they'd never truly looked. And I didn't know what was worse. A week after the baby shower, I tried to forget. Tried to fold the memory into the back of my mind like laundry you don't want to deal with, shoved into the bottom of a basket, hoping it'll disappear under time and distraction. I went back to work. Bought groceries. Listened to podcasts at double speed just to keep my brain from going quiet. Because when things got quiet, the questions got louder. Why was I there? Why was he there? Why was I never enough to protect? I hadn't talked to my sister since. She didn't reach out, and I didn't either. I thought if I waited long enough, maybe she'd realize. Maybe she'd replay it all in her head and hear the silence where my name should have been. Maybe she'd find the courage to say, "I'm sorry. I was wrong." But instead, I got a text. It came on a Thursday morning while I was in line for coffee. The barista was calling out names and everything smelled like cinnamon and burnt espresso when my phone buzzed in my back pocket. "Lila, crazy seeing you at the shower. Hope we can talk soon?" I stared at it like it was a ghost. I could barely breathe. I hadn't seen her. Not at the shower. Not for over a year. And yet there she was, laughing in text form, using emojis like we were still 22 and sharing secrets over boxed wine and Netflix marathons. She'd been there. She'd been invited. Not just Tyler. Lila too. The two people who shattered me like glass left in a hot car. Who twisted my trust into something unrecognizable. Who looked me in the eyes and told me I was overthinking things while they were already climbing into each other's beds behind my back. I left my coffee in the pickup tray and walked straight to my car. My fingers shook as I dialed Sarah. She picked up on the second ring. "Hey! What's up?" There was a lightness in her voice that made something crack in my chest. "I got a text from Lila," I said, trying to keep my voice even. "She said it was crazy seeing me at your baby shower." A pause. Then a too casual, "Oh, yeah. You invited her. She's still friends with some of my friends. And with Tyler. I didn't think it would be weird." "You didn't think it would be weird to invite both of them?" I asked, voice thinner now, like it was standing on glass. "The two people who ruined my relationship, my friendships, my sense of reality?" Sarah sighed. Like I was inconveniencing her with my feelings. "It was my shower," she said slowly, like I was the child in this conversation. "I just didn't want any drama. I wanted to have a good day." "And what did you think I would do? Flip a table? Start a fight over the cupcakes?" "I didn't know if you'd come," she said. "Honestly, I thought maybe you wouldn't want to. And you hadn't really been around." I pressed my hand to my chest. It actually hurt, like my heart was too big for my ribcage. "So you invited them and hoped I wouldn't show up?" She didn't answer. And that silence? That was my answer. I could feel my throat closing, that familiar burn behind my eyes. But I wasn't going to cry. Not here. Not for her. "You invited the people who ruined my life," I said, each word deliberate, "and you forgot me." I didn't wait for her reply. I hung up. I didn't trust myself not to beg for something again: love, loyalty, decency. Things I shouldn't have to ask for. I turned my phone off. Sat in my parked car for a long time, forehead resting on the steering wheel, listening to the ticking of the engine cooling down. It was the kind of quiet that wasn't peaceful. It was deafening. The kind that makes your pulse sound louder than it should, like your body is trying to scream even when you won't. The memory of the baby shower came rushing back in fragments. The way my name wasn't on any seating chart. The way her friends looked past me like I was someone's plus one. The unopened gift, still sealed in a bag like it had been dropped off by a stranger. All of it made sense now. I wasn't wanted there. They weren't caught off guard by my arrival, they were uncomfortable. Embarrassed. Because I wasn't supposed to show up and ruin their curated little world of pastel forgiveness and convenient amnesia. I wasn't part of the story anymore. I had just never been told. That night, I drove to a lookout point outside of town. Just me and the skyline, and a few teenagers smoking in the distance, pretending they didn't see me crying in the driver's seat. I rolled the windows down and let the cold bite my skin. I wanted to feel something real. Something that reminded me I was still here. That I still existed outside of their narratives. Because that was the cruelest part, I think. Not the betrayal itself, but how easily they moved on. How quickly I was rewritten. Erased. Forgotten. No one fought for me. No one even paused. I scrolled through old photos on my phone. One of me, Sarah, and Lila in our matching flannel pajamas, arms tangled like sisters on Christmas Eve. One of Tyler kissing my cheek on my birthday, his eyes squinting with the kind of laughter I used to believe was pure. I selected them all and hit delete. A small, stupid thing. But symbolic. Later, I sat in the dark of my apartment, wrapped in the old quilt my grandmother made, the one with tiny crooked stitches and mismatched patterns. I didn't turn on the lights. Didn't turn on music. Just sat there in silence, letting the dark wrap around me like a cocoon. Not because I was broken. But because I needed the quiet to hear what was left of me. And for the first time, I wasn't sure who that person was anymore. The fallout didn't look like fire. It looked like quiet indifference. No dramatic confrontations. No phone calls. No apologies. Just silence. And then, revision. I started noticing things. Small things at first, a photo Sarah posted from the baby shower. The caption said, "Grateful for everyone who showed up and made the day so perfect," and I wasn't in a single frame. Not even the background. It was like I'd never been there at all. I scrolled through the comments. Lila had left heart emojis. Tyler commented, "Such a special day, thanks for including us." Us. There was no mention of me. No trace of that awkward moment when I handed Sarah a gift she didn't expect. No record of my name being left off the guest list. No sign that I'd stood under the same string lights and felt the weight of invisibility pressing on my shoulders. And somehow, everyone else seemed perfectly fine with that version of the story. The family group chat lit up with photos and inside jokes, all from the shower. I saw my cousin post a meme that read, "When your family's full of drama, but you just came for the cake," with laughing emojis. It got 30 reactions. I didn't reply. I didn't leave the chat either. I just stopped speaking. That felt louder somehow. Eventually, I noticed I wasn't in the chat anymore. They removed me. No one said why. No explanation. No message afterward. Just gone. Sarah didn't call. My mom didn't check in. Even Emily, who used to message me about nail polish and Netflix, had stopped liking my posts. And I knew, deep down, they were all being fed some version of the story. That I was being framed as the problem. Dramatic. Unstable. Attention-seeking. Words that cling to women like shadows when we say things that make people uncomfortable. especially in families that prefer quiet shame over messy honesty. But what they never asked was why. No one ever asked why I pulled away. No one asked how it felt to walk into a room filled with my past and realize I was the only one who hadn't been forgiven for existing. I stopped replying to texts. Stopped checking Instagram. Started putting my phone in a drawer after work. I needed the distance, like someone needs air after nearly drowning. Instead, I bought a journal. One of those leather-bound ones with thick pages and a ribbon to mark your place. I wrote in it every night. Sometimes just a line. Sometimes pages. It started simple. I don't feel real today. Then longer things. I'm tired of being the one who notices everything but is never noticed. The act of writing made me feel tethered again. Like if I could name the pain, I could prove it was real. I wrote letters to no one. To Sarah. To Tyler. To the version of me that used to believe love meant loyalty. That family meant safety. That forgiveness was a two-way street. I started therapy too. It felt strange at first, talking to someone who didn't know any of them. Who didn't carry the family tree in her mind like a tangled map of obligations and half-truths. But there was freedom in that blankness. She didn't flinch when I said, "I think my sister forgot me on purpose." She just nodded and asked, "How long have you felt invisible?" And that's when it hit me. It wasn't about the baby shower. Not really. It was about every time I was told to be the bigger person while Sarah got to scream and break things. Every holiday photo where I stood at the edge. Every family dinner where my stories were interrupted but hers were met with applause. Every quiet sacrifice I made, thinking it would earn me closeness, and being met with indifference instead. I wasn't just grieving a betrayal. I was grieving a lifetime of being almost loved. One night, after therapy, I sat on my kitchen floor with my back against the fridge and wrote the longest letter I've ever written. It was for Sarah, but I knew I'd never send it. Maybe that was the point. I wrote about the baby shower. About how it felt to walk into that space and realize I was the ghost. About seeing Tyler and feeling like my body was made of glass. About Lila's message, and the group chat, and every time she told our parents I was too emotional. But I also wrote about us. About how I used to look up to her. How I still remembered the way she braided my hair the night before my first day of middle school, humming that song from that stupid Disney movie she loved. I wrote about the good parts, too. Because they mattered. Even if they were tangled in everything else. When I finished, I folded the letter into thirds and placed it in a box with my old journals. I didn't need her to read it. I just needed to say it out loud. A few days later, I got a DM. Not from Sarah. Not from anyone in the family. It was from a girl named Jess, someone I vaguely remembered from one of Sarah's yoga groups. She wasn't someone I was close to. We'd maybe exchanged 5 words at a cookout once. Her message was simple. "Hey, I just wanted you to know, you didn't imagine it. I was at the shower. I heard what your sister said about you. It wasn't okay." I read it 3 times before I could breathe. Then she sent a screenshot. It was a group text. I wasn't in it, obviously, but Sarah had typed something that made my stomach clench. "Just FYI, if my sister shows up, don't make a thing out of it. She's been really sensitive lately and I don't want her ruining the vibe. Just keep things light and act normal." Sensitive. The same word they always used. Not hurt. Not betrayed. Just sensitive. I stared at the screen for a long time. It wasn't proof I needed, I already knew. But still, it mattered. That someone else had seen it. That someone else had looked at me, even briefly, and thought, "You didn't deserve that." It was a tiny flicker of something. Not quite forgiveness. Not quite closure. But it felt like air. Like maybe I wasn't as alone as they wanted me to feel. The thing about clarity is that it doesn't arrive like lightning. It doesn't crack through the sky with fanfare. It creeps in slowly. Drip by drip. Truth collecting in the corners of your mind until, finally, you can't unsee it. I hadn't spoken to anyone in my family in weeks. Not since the text from Lila. Not since the phone call with Sarah that ended in the kind of silence that feels like it's still ringing. But the message from Jess, the screenshot, lingered. Not because it was shocking, but because it confirmed what I'd been swallowing for years. I wasn't too sensitive. I was just too inconvenient. So I did something I hadn't done in a long time. I called my mother. She answered on the second ring, chipper as ever, as if my absence these last few weeks hadn't been thunderous. "Well, hey stranger. Thought you fell off the planet," she said with a laugh that hit too sharp. "Hi," I replied, steady. "Do you have a minute?" There was a pause, and then the shift. That subtle tone change when someone realizes this isn't a call for weather updates or grocery lists. "Of course," she said, quieter now. I didn't waste time. "Did Sarah tell you I wasn't invited to the baby shower?" Another pause. Longer. She said, "She wasn't sure if you'd want to come," my mom replied slowly, like she was stepping carefully across thin ice. "She told me you'd been distant, and she didn't want to put pressure on you." I closed my eyes. There it was. The lie. Not an accident. Not a mistake. A story, carefully crafted and passed around like a polite excuse. She hadn't forgotten. She'd deliberately written me out, handed everyone a script, and waited for me to disappear quietly. "I would have come," I said. My voice didn't shake. "I bought a gift. I showed up." And she acted like I was a stranger who'd crashed the party. My mom didn't respond at first. I could hear her breathing on the other end, and then a soft, brittle, "I didn't know." "I believe you," I said. "But I need you to hear something." She told people not to make a thing out of me. Because I'm too sensitive. She made me the problem before I even arrived. I'm sure she didn't mean. She invited my ex, I cut in. The one who cheated on me. She invited my former best friend. She made space for them. And said there wasn't space for me. The silence was different this time. Heavier. She didn't deny it. Didn't defend her. And maybe that was the most telling part. "I'm not asking you to take sides," I said finally. "I just want to stop pretending this didn't happen." After that, I knew what I had to do. Not for revenge. For reality. I wasn't going to argue anymore, or cry in corners, or beg anyone to acknowledge my pain. I had done that for too long, with boyfriends, with family, with people who smiled in photos but recoiled from truth. I opened Instagram and made a post. Just a picture of my unopened gift, the pink bag, the tissue paper still perfect, the journal I had picked out so carefully. No caption. Just the photo. And then I posted a second image, the screenshot from Jess. The group text where Sarah had written the words. "If my sister shows up, don't make a thing out of it." She's been really sensitive lately. I didn't tag anyone. Didn't write a dramatic essay. Just let the truth sit there, naked and unembellished. My phone buzzed for hours after. Some likes. A few messages. One from an old friend, I had no idea. "I'm sorry." Another from a cousin I hadn't spoken to in a year, I thought something felt off. "Thank you for speaking up." No word from Sarah. Not until 2 days later. She sent a single text. Wow. Real mature. I didn't reply. There was nothing left to explain. The part one didn't expect came later, at brunch. It was a mutual friend's birthday. I almost didn't go, but something in me needed to feel normal again. To be somewhere that didn't carry her name like a ghost in the room. Sarah was there. Of course she was. Holding court at one end of the table like nothing had happened. When I walked in, a few people looked up and then quickly away. She glanced at me. Paused. Then turned to keep talking. I found a seat on the other side of the table, next to Jess. We didn't speak about it. She just gave me a small nod, the kind that says, I saw what happened. I still see you. Midway through the meal, someone brought up the shower. Someone who hadn't seen the post. Oh my God, it was so cute, a girl said. That cake? The balloons? It was perfect. And then, as if on cue, she added, wasn't your sister there? Sarah stiffened. Just slightly. And I calmly, softly, said, I was. Briefly. The table went quiet. No one knew what to say. Some fidgeted with their forks. One guy took a too long sip of coffee. Sarah looked down at her napkin like she suddenly forgot how to fold it. Jess looked over and said, that photo you posted? With the gift? That was really beautiful. Sarah's face flushed. Not red, pale. Like all the color had drained. She didn't say a word. And that was the moment the air changed. Not because I'd won. This wasn't about winning. It was about no longer shrinking. I didn't need her to confess. I didn't need the table to turn against her. All I needed was for the truth to take up space. And for once, it did. The new apartment wasn't much. Just a one-bedroom walk-up with creaky floorboards and paint that flaked a little near the windowsill. The water pressure was unpredictable. The oven door squeaked when you opened it too fast. But it was mine. Entirely mine. No voices echoing down the hall. No footsteps I had to brace myself against. No spaces I needed to tiptoe around. It was the first time I could close the door and know, without question, that peace lived on the other side. I didn't tell my family I was moving. I didn't need to. No one had asked where I'd been anyway. I filled the space slowly. A thrifted bookshelf. A little plant from the corner market that I named Francis, just because. A soft blue rug that reminded me of sky on water. I painted one wall a pale green, even though the landlord technically said not to, and I didn't care. It was quiet here, and in that quiet, I started doing small things again. I walked every morning before work, headphones in, feet soft on pavement. I volunteered on weekends at a local animal shelter, just folding blankets or refilling food bowls, but it made me feel useful in a way that was gentle. I started painting again. Not well. Not for anyone else. But for the first time in years, my hands weren't afraid to make something messy. I painted abstract skies, crooked birds, wide-open fields that looked nothing like where I lived, but somehow felt like home. And then one day, a card arrived. No return address, but I knew the handwriting before I opened it. Sarah. Inside, a printed photo of her newborn daughter. Wrapped in soft pink. Eyes closed, mouth barely open like she was dreaming already. The card read, "She's here. Hope you're doing well." No apology. No invitation. Just a line, meant, perhaps, to say I thought of you without having to say I see you. I didn't respond. Not because I was angry anymore. But because I no longer needed to fold myself into someone else's version of grace. I had spent so much of my life waiting, for clarity, for closure, for the moment someone would finally say, "You were right to feel what you felt." But that moment never came. And somehow, I was still standing. Somewhere along the way, I stopped needing their validation to feel real. They didn't have to believe me. I believed me. My birthday came on a soft Sunday morning. No phone calls. A couple texts from coworkers. A delivery notification from a skincare brand I forgot I subscribed to. I didn't plan anything. No big dinner. No crowded brunch. Just me, a box of cake mix, and a tiny candle I found in a junk drawer. I baked it in the squeaky oven. I frosted it unevenly, badly, beautifully. One layer, too much frosting on one side. I put it on a chipped plate and carried it to the windowsill, where the afternoon light was soft and the world felt quiet enough to hold. I lit the candle. I didn't make a wish. I just whispered, softly, "You didn't forget you." And for the first time in a long time, I smiled without wondering if someone else saw it. I took a bite of cake. It was warm, a little too sweet, and perfect in its imperfection. Later that night, I stood outside in my slippers with a mug of tea and looked up at the sky. It was cloudless. Wide open. One of those skies that made you feel like anything could begin again, just because you decided it would. A neighbor passed by with their dog. We nodded, exchanged that quiet, neighborly smile. And that was enough. I didn't need to be seen in the way I used to crave, desperately, completely, at the cost of my own voice. Now, being seen meant seeing myself clearly. Knowing what I was worth, even when others refused to name it. Maybe one day Sarah and I would talk again. Maybe not. But I wouldn't go back to who I was before, the girl who shrunk herself for peace, who edited her feelings to make others comfortable, who confused invisibility with love. And maybe, if someone else out there is reading this, sitting in silence, wondering if their pain is real, wondering if the story in their heart matters, I hope they know this. You don't need a witness to be whole. And you don't need their permission to begin again. As for me, I'm not waiting anymore. I'm here. Whole. Quiet. Unafraid to be alone. And I didn't forget me. Not this time. Not ever again.